Jon Lentz, City&State's Managing Editor, and this is Last Look. My guest today is Adam Haber, a candidate for Nassau County Executive. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So in this race, you're running against two people who've been county executive, the incumbent, Ed Mangano, a Republican, and his predecessor, Tom Suozzi, a Democrat. Why are you running, and what do you see as your path to victory?
Well, you got to win the playoffs before you get to the World Series, so I'm running against Tom Suozzi first, and then Ed Mangano. My path to victory is just doing what I'm doing, knocking on over 6,000 doors, endless phone calls, meetings, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Feedback I get is tremendous, and I think I'm well on my way to where I need to be.
Now, both of those guys, and maybe let's focus on Suozzi, since it's still in the Democratic primary, have experience as county executive.
Right.
What's your argument to say, you would do a better job?
Well, I moved in Nassau County in 1993. And since I've been there, nothing's been built of any consequence whatsoever. And there's a crane on every corner in New York City. No companies have actually come here. We've lost Grumman, we've lost Canon. I mean, I can almost say I can't do any worse. We don't have a strong middle class. We've lost 30,000 manufacturing jobs, 30,000 construction jobs, over 50,000 finance jobs, and replaced them with low-paying retail jobs since Suozzi took office.
And what is your solution to some of these problems?
Oh boy, well you have to think big. I've in my life created quite a few jobs. I own a couple restaurants, I'm involved in commercial real estate, I'm a big venture capital startup investor. We need mixed-use transit-oriented development, something that will bring guys like yourself to Nassau County, under 35, the next generation to fill the ranks of the thinning population. Because I spoke to a young man named Urel recently, who just graduated college. He said, there's no housing for me here. There's no job opportunities for me here. I want to live here, but why should I stay? Even entertainment-wise, there's nothing. I can go to Williamsburg, I can go to Astoria, I can go to Jersey City or Hoboken or Manhattan. We've got to create a different environment so the next generation wants to come here. We're next to the greatest city in the world, yet we're failing.
Now, as you know, a big problem in Nassau County is the government's finances. What would you do to fix that problem?
Well, I moved to Nassau County in 1993. Since that time, Nassau County has double the debt of any other county in all of New York State, excluding the 5 boroughs, over $3 billion in debt. Finances are a mess. We're basically insolvent if you take in the money that's owed back for tax certiorari claims and the money that's going to be owed back for salaries and the frozen wages from NIFA in 2011. Fixing the problem, very simply, you have to fix tax certiorari. There's over 100,000 claims for people to get refunds. Unless you stop that system, it's been $100 million a year refunding for over 10 years. $1 billion has been bonded instead of fixing the problem. Both Suozzi and Mangano had the opportunity and never fixed it. And also stop doing things like paying $20 million a year to your friends who are attorneys outside of the county. There's a lot of efficiencies you can find as a guy who knows how to run businesses that have nothing to do with raising taxes or cutting staff. Another financial thing, if you add back people into the assessment department, you can actually do it more efficiently and save money. If you add back people into the clerk's office, you can actually collect the fees and fines that you're owed. People can't even pay what they're owed. I recently got a ticket for a red light camera, and I wanted to know what was going on, so I called the Department of Clerk's office where the number on the ticket was located, and I got hung up on 3 times. I mean, that's not really customer service, and it frustrates people who really just want to go about their business quickly.
Now, when we interviewed Tom Suozzi, I asked him a similar question about the county's finances and his performance when he was county executive. He said he actually improved the situation.
Oh, it was wonderful.
13 bond upgrades. It was made stable by Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's. Under Mangano, he said there have been 13 bond downgrades. So if you hear it from Suozzi, it sounds like he did a good job.
Well, there's perception and there's reality. All right, like I mentioned before, Nassau County has lost 30,000 construction jobs, 30,000 manufacturing jobs, and over 50,000 financial jobs, replacing them with low-paying retail jobs. And we have a really squeezed middle class who's having a very hard time. Suozzi took over. There was a structural surplus of over $12 million. That's reoccurring revenue versus reoccurring expenses. In 2008, when he was about to leave, there was a gap of over $120 million. You could balance the budget in Nassau County by borrowing money, the way they do accounting. So if you're an individual who makes $50,000 a year and your expenses are $70,000 a year and you borrow $30,000, in government you have a $10,000 surplus. In the real world, you're flat broke. That's the reason why the county's desperately cutting services, and that's why businesses are fleeing. There's no imagination. Like I've said, nothing has come here. No businesses have come here. We've lost Cannon, we've lost Grumman. We're really getting squeezed on both sides. There's nothing being built of any consequence. Nothing gets done. What I learned in Nassau County, the mentality is NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. I've heard something different called banana, which is build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. And we've got the only way we get out of the problems we have is by increasing our sales tax collections, because that's the bulk of our revenue in Nassau County. The way to do that is increase the tax base, which is encourage businesses to come here, which is to stimulate the economy through construction.
So you've also called for having a large event in Nassau County, a 10-day sporting event. Newsday, in its endorsement of Tom Suozzi, said this was a far-fetched idea.
Well, the Newsday editors have never created anything other than editorials. I'm a businessman who creates and looks for creative ideas to bring capital here. The Sikh Games in Glen Cove happened last weekend. There are people from all over the United States and Canada who came and packed Glen Cove for just games for a religious-based background, and it was quite popular. Imagine if we had something creative here, where you had a triathlon, you had a beach volleyball, you had fishing, deep-sea fishing, you had possibly golf, you had a fast-pitch softball, you had cricket. You leveraged what we have here in Nassau County, which is great outdoor sports. And the governor's State of the State address in January said we'll give a $5 million prize to regional tourism. So if you pack the hotels, which will generate sales revenue, and pack the restaurants, and then have food festivals, and then have a wine country festival, and have sports and music festivals, every year people will come here over and over and over again and spend huge amounts of money, and industries will develop around that. You look at Oyster Fest in Glen Cove, in Oyster Bay, excuse me, started with 5,000 people 20 years ago. It's 200,000 people over 3 days. It's a wonderful idea. It's been widely well accepted everywhere I go. People are into it because it's not a Democratic idea. It's not a Republican idea. It doesn't raise your taxes. It leverages the best of what we have. And the greatest part of it is because there's going to be no hotels left because the place will be so packed, just like the U.S. Open with Tiger Woods. People could rent their homes out for 2 weeks or less a year and not pay taxes on them. So all those high real estate taxes, people have an opportunity to rent their home out and go on vacation and pay their taxes for the year. It's a win-win-win on every level. I'm quite excited to do that and create something where nothing has been before. Think differently. If we still do the things we've done before with Suozzi, with Galata, with Mangano, we're going to get the same results. We've got to try a different path.
Now, when Tom Suozzi was in here, he said he didn't really want to address some things you were bringing up. He didn't really feel like he needed to say your name. I know you've also called for debates.
Who's Tom Suozzi?
What's the status of that? Will there be any debates before the primary?
It seems like there's going to be a debate just recently after we've been calling for them for 180 days. And debating is part of the democratic process. I mean, I'm amazed that there wasn't one, a series of them. We called for 18 actually, one every 3 a month and 1 week from to rest for 6 months. And it just didn't work out. Now, finally, right before the primary, because it looks like I'm going to win, he wants to have a debate on September 3rd, which Long Island 12 is going to moderate for all of a half an hour. So I hope we can jam a lot of things in there and get our point across as to why I can do great things for the community, which Suozzi and Mangano haven't done.
Mm-hmm. Now, one attack that's come from your opponents is that you switched parties from the GOP to the Democrat in 2000. I'd just be curious, what prompted you to switch? What was the decision-making process?
It was pretty simple. When my dad took me to sign up for to vote when I was 18, he was a Republican, so I registered Republican. Then I started getting more active politically and seeing what was going on. And about 15 years ago, this is before the internet was popular, I switched over to a Democrat because I believe in democratic values. I'm quite socially liberal. I think we need to take care of the least among us. And if you look at my track record, I've never supported a Republican candidate. I've only donated to probably 15 or 20 different Democratic candidates. And I've been on the side of most of the Democratic issues that have been brought forth in Nassau County since I started. So it's really a non-issue. You do background research on people to see what their negatives are. That's the best I can come up with. I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
And I also wanted to touch on the Long Island Power Authority. That's been in the news over the past year since Superstorm Sandy hit. They had this restructuring plan that's going through. Do you feel like it's a good plan, this semi-restructuring? Do you think is there any risk that it could raise rates, or do you think it'll help out the authority?
Well, to say you're going to keep rates flat for 3 years, if the authority runs at a deficit, they're going to have to borrow more money. They still have a huge amount of money they have to pay back from the Sherman plant. So that's one of the reasons why Long Islanders suffer from some of the highest tax rates in all of the country. Electricity rates, in all of the country. But I think this plan they have is the best one going forward because it's a public-private partnership that if God forbid there's another storm, they can get federal funds, and they could borrow at public interest rates, which is much lower than the private sector, which would save hundreds of millions of dollars over the life of the bonds. So given all the scenarios, I read all the reports, I think this is the best plan we have going forward.
Adam Haber, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for Last Look. To check out other Last Look videos, go to our website, cityandstateny.com.